Coming up on Jerusalem Dateline, the pressure mounts for a ceasefire from the U.S. and Europe as Israeli leaders reiterate their resolve to meet military goals. And a beacon of healing and hope in Ashkelon, Arab and Jewish doctors working together to treat all the wounded, regardless of affiliation. Plus, a display honoring the hundreds of fallen at the haunting site of the Nova Music Festival. All this and more coming up on this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. Hello and welcome to this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. I'm Julie Stahl. U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin met with Israeli leaders in Tel Aviv on Monday to try to streamline Israel's war efforts, as well as talk about the broader regional trouble backed by Iran. Take a look. Hamas released a video of 3 of the older male hostages pleading with Israel to obtain their release. Chaim Perry said he's being held with other elderly hostages, all with chronic illnesses. He said they feel abandoned and don't want to die as a result of Israeli airstrikes. The 3 chanting, "At all costs, don't throw us away in old age." In a briefing to the nation, IDF spokesman Daniel Hagari spoke directly to the hostages and said that Israel is doing everything it can to get them out.
The video Hamas released in the past hour is an evil terror video. It indicates Hamas' brutality toward very old civilians, innocent and in need of medical attention.
Hamas is still holding more than 100 hostages, including women and 2 children. The 2 sides are reportedly exploring the possibility of a new round of negotiations. Visiting U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin said the U.S. will continue to push for the return of the hostages. He also called the October 7 massacre an act of sheer evil, which Hamas has vowed to repeat again and again.
No country should tolerate such a danger. And Israel has every right to defend itself against a fanatical terrorist group whose stated purpose is to murder Jews and eradicate the Jewish state.
Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant says Israel's war is for more than just itself.
Our common enemies around the world are watching, and they know that Israel's victory is the victory of the free world led by the United States of America.
While the U.S. has been privately pressuring Israel to begin scaling down operations in Gaza, in a public meeting with Prime Minister Netanyahu, Austin expressed unwavering U.S. support for Israel in its battle against Hamas.
Our commitment to Israel is unshakable. I know that Israel is a small, tight-knit country, and I know that all Israelis were touched by the vast evil committed by Hamas.
This is Austin's 2nd time here since the October 7 massacre.
So I'm here to mourn with you for the innocent souls taken from you on October 7th. America's commitment to Israel is unwavering, and no individual, group, or state should test our resolve.
That includes Iran's backing of terror groups in the region like Hezbollah in Lebanon and the Houthis of Yemen, who have been attacking commercial ships in the Red Sea. Austin announcing a new force to protect shipping in the region.
So in the Red Sea, we're leading a multinational maritime task force to uphold the bedrock principle of freedom of navigation.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu thanked Austin for U.S. support and pointed the finger at Iran.
This is a battle against the Iranian axis of terror, which is now threatening to close the maritime Strait of Bab el-Mandeb. This threatens the freedom of navigation of the entire world.
In the U.S., the majority of Jewish people are considered politically liberal. But since the October attack against Israel, many of them feel betrayed by those they once considered ideological friends. CBN's chief political analyst, David Brody, has the story.
One major result of the Hamas attack and subsequent war in Gaza has been an alarming rise in anti-Semitism, notably from the left in America.
Palestine will never die!
From student groups on college campuses
Go back to Poland! Go back to Germany!
to Jews attacked at rallies. With groups like Democratic Socialists of America promoting pro-Hamas rallies, it's left progressive Jews wondering what's going on in their world.
To be clear, you are not a feminist if you can't feel for the Israeli civilian women, children, and babies who were murdered. And so I'm very angry about what I'm hearing.
This week, we entered the upside-down world when a retrograde, regressive, totalitarian, misogynistic, messianic, terrorist regime became, for the time being, the hero of the left. How could it be?
It shouldn't come as a complete surprise. A Harvard-Harris poll shows 36% of liberals see the Hamas attack on Israeli civilians as justified. Among 18 to 24-year-olds, a majority, 51%, say the killings could be justified. Overall, Gallup shows Democrats are more sympathetic to the Palestinians than the Israelis, 49% versus 38%. Democrat strategists like Joel Rubin believe if the left abandons progressive Jews who love Israel, there will be a political price.
If you kick out the Jews who care about Israel from progressive coalitions, these progressive coalitions will have no political power, and they will go down the rabbit hole of looking like anti-Semites. One should be able to support Israel and being Jewish and still be progressive. But that is now becoming a litmus test in progressive coalitions.
Historically, anti-Semitism has existed worldwide in these circles.
The National Socialist Nazi Party, they were left of center. You know, the textbook definition of socialism is the state controls the means of production and distribution. And that is what Hitler advocated.
Today, liberal Jews break bread with the left on issues of abortion, gay and transgender rights, as well as overall social justice. A split grows, however, between the left and Israeli-supporting Jews when it comes to defending Palestinians and terrorists.
I am somewhat shocked that people would embrace Hamas, because there's nothing progressive about Hamas, right? This idea you have queers for Hamas or feminists for Hamas when they would kill these people or, you know, force them not to drive or not to work if they're women is just bizarre.
Caroline Glick, contributing editor for the Jewish News Syndicate, sees that leading liberal Jews to fight back.
You're seeing a lot of Jews who major donors to universities, pulling their donations, quitting boards and other major institutions because they're suddenly realizing that they've been giving many millions of dollars to institutions that have become institutionally anti-Semitic.
It's a growing dynamic that progressive Jews may find they have to push through the pain in order to confront. David Brody, CBN News, Washington.
Coming up, a hospital on the front lines of tragedy rises as a symbol of hope and unity between Jews and Arabs. In the wake of October 7th, Barzilai Hospital in Ashkelon has emerged as a beacon of hope and resilience. Our war correspondent, Chuck Holton, brings us an inside look at the hospital's critical role during this crisis.
Strategically located near the Israeli-Gaza border, Barzilai Hospital has treated hundreds of wounded from both sides over the years. During the Hamas attacks, hospital personnel once again mobilized to handle an influx of casualties. And the conditions were more challenging than ever.
And as soon as I arrived here, within about less than half an hour, started the flow of casualties, which was awful. We know what are casualties of bombing, but this time it wasn't much more. It was very high-velocity bullets of Kalashnikov, 7.62 millimeters, from very near. So there were awful wounds, including all the body, face, chest, abdomen, pelvis, legs, blood vessels. And we didn't have enough time to go to imaging sometimes. Just from the trauma room, which is there, going, stabilizing the patient, and running to the operating theater. And it was flow that one after one came to the hospital.
Adding insult to injury, when a Hamas rocket fell short and struck a hospital in Gaza, much of the media quickly blamed the IDF, Ironically, Hamas rockets have struck Barzillai twice, but that's received much less attention in the press.
No one seemed to care that this hospital had been targeted, rocketed over and over and over again. The world went crazy. Politicians, the media, when the lie came out that Israel had hit a hospital in Gaza. And the result of that was that Jews around the world were beaten. There were pogroms around the world, that synagogues around the world were torched for this lie. And no one seems to care that this hospital, Barzillai, which is so important, really should be one of the great symbols of hope in the world. No one seems to care that it's rocketed over and over.
This New York trauma surgeon volunteered to come to Israel after the attacks.
It's been incredible. The environment here, the collaboration, you have people from all walks of life. I've had the privilege to work with people who are Muslim, Jewish, religious, non-affiliated, Druze, Bedouin, and we've been treating everyone. You're not going to hear about it a lot in the news because for the sake of anonymity, we don't publicize everyone we've been treating, but we've been treating everyone on all sides of the conflict.
The Arab, Muslim, and Israeli medical staff that was on duty here on that fateful day, October 7th, had no idea what they were in for. But as the wounded kept rolling in, they knew something fundamental had changed. And in the days since, many of them have not gone home. They are sleeping here at the hospital. And they say that they're going to continue to stay here and treat not only the wounded civilians, but also the soldiers who are being wounded on this fight for Gaza.
People don't realize that hundreds of Gazans come over every year from Gaza to be treated at the hospital. And before Hamas took over, it was thousands. That Arabs and Jews work together to save the lives of Arabs and Jews together in this hospital.
Still coping with the stream of wounded, Barzillai is only one of many similar hospitals working diligently across Israel.
I think my fellowship in the Bronx in New York was very good preparation for this. You see a lot of penetrating trauma every single day, and it really just mentally and physically prepares you for what I came to see here.
And here, miracles are a daily occurrence.
They're very much miracles what I'm seeing here. It's literally like things are going out of their way to miss integral organs. People, the injuries I'm seeing here, had I seen them in the Bronx, would have been devastating, life-ending, debilitating injuries. Here, I don't know whether it's someone watching over them or whether it's just the strength of these people. Every single one of them, they come here, they're all injured. The first thing they do is ask when they can go back, because it's really the strength that you're seeing here. And miracle of miracles, we're just seeing incredible feats of strength and just someone's watching over us from above.
From Ashkelon, I'm Chuck Holton for CBN News.
Up next, coming to Israel as witnesses to history, two former prime ministers visit Kfar Aza and talk with IDF soldiers on the front lines. In a show of solidarity, former Prime Ministers Boris Johnson from Britain and Scott Morrison from Australia visited Israeli war sites. Danny Danone, Israel's former ambassador to the UN, took them to Kfar Aza to witness firsthand the evidence of October 7th atrocities.
Morrison and Johnson inspected communities devastated by the Hamas terrorists along the Gaza border and met with British lone soldiers serving in the IDF. Several of the soldiers volunteered immediately after the Hamas massacre. They told CBN News why they're fighting.
This is our homeland. This is where we're from. This is where we live. As we saw back in World War II, what happened to the Jews during the Holocaust, it's something even worse.
People should be reminded of the full tragedy and horror and sadism of what happened on October the 7th.
Johnson told the soldiers why he's supporting Israel in the war with Hamas.
There has been a dulling, a blurring of moral clarity around the world. This particular thing is black and white. It is right and wrong. It is good and evil. It cannot be in any way excused, defended, or condoned. And the people who did it have got to be prevented from doing it again.
Around the world, pro-Palestinian marches are generating anti-Israel, anti-Semitic sentiment.
We need to not look at these protests as something that should stop us from doing what we need to do.
If I compare it to 9/11, let's say.
Yeah, it's a good comparison.
There wasn't a pro-Al-Qaeda march on the streets of Britain.
No.
After 9/11. I think in terms of looking at it from the Jewish standpoint of being abroad at the moment, it's a very scary time.
Johnson spells out his moral understanding of the war.
I think it is very important that people remember the crucial distinction between what you are trying to do to keep civilians out of harm's way and what Hamas terrorists have done, which is to try to maximize civilian suffering in the most brutal possible way.
Reservist paratrooper Sam Sank just returned from the Gaza border.
But I know from the instructions that I've been given as a frontline soldier that the IDF does everything possible using its technology and its strategy to make sure that the military targets are the ones that are hit rather than anything else. The state of the innocent Palestinian civilians is horrible, and I sympathize with them and think that they've been dealt a really bad card in life, but it's Hamas who are holding them hostage rather than the IDF. Israel is held to a double standard unlike any other country in the world. And if you really want to understand the conflict, Israel will be considered the most humane army in the world, but it is, and I see that firsthand.
Hamas backed by Iran, who has the goal of eliminating Israel. These young men are engaged in a struggle for Israel's very existence.
Lone soldier Shimi Levy believes in winning the war, and he also believes that biblical prophecy is being fulfilled.
Torah eventually, we're talking about coming to the land and reuniting as a people, and slowly but surely we're bringing up the days of Messiah, in my personal opinion.
He also says that many more in the IDF are turning to the God of Israel.
A music festival dedicated to love, friendship, and peace became the scene of a bloodbath on October 7th. Today, the site is sacred ground for Israelis who come to remember the hundreds of young men and women massacred by Hamas. Chris Mitchell reports.
Videos from that day at the Nova Music Festival show hundreds of young people running for their lives. Many seen being taken hostage, while others died at the hands of terrorists. Here on the grounds of the Nova Music Festival, they have pictures of all those who were murdered or kidnapped on October 7th. Hamas murdered 375 that day. That alone would have made it the second largest terror attack in history. Now this place has become a shrine of sorts where soldiers and civilians come to remember and reflect.
It's tough. It's a tough feeling. I'm also a member of the tribe, the trance, the music, the festivals. I have a lot of friends that were here. I lost a relative. I just saw his picture. You're walking here and you feel all the atrocities.
The site lies just a few miles from Gaza, where the sound of Israeli artillery fills the air.
I feel horrible. I feel deep sorrow and distress when I see all those faces of young, innocent people, so beautiful, so young, that came here to, to have a party of peace and love, and were murdered brutally.
A new exhibition opened in Tel Aviv to recreate the festival grounds attacked on October 7th and honor its victims. Some of the bodies were so badly burned during the attacks that there's little left to identify. For this soldier, it's a reminder of why he's fighting just miles away.
As you can hear, it's still a war zone here, but this place was a massacre. It wasn't a military encampment, nothing of the sort. It was just a massacre. People were slaughtered here. And a lot of other things that I can't really say on camera, but it's horrible. We just went out for a little bit of to get some air. We came here to remind ourselves what we're doing. Yep, that's why we're here.
Hundreds of burnt cars littered the road next to the festival that day. This IDF officer fought just down the road while his son fled the music festival.
He ran away from the party with two other girls of his, and they actually ran from here towards Kibbutz Patish, or Mushav Patish. It was a journey of about 2.5 hours.
They kept phoning each other.
I told him, I can't help you. Because I was on the main road about 4 or 5 kilometers down. I had a fight with some terrorists, and I was stuck and he was stuck. And he wanted help, and I couldn't help him. And I told him, there's no police, there's no army. Figure it out by yourself. You're a big boy, he's a 24-year-old.
He did figure it out, and the 3 survived, although there's still much sadness.
And he lost a lot of friends here. A lot of girlfriends and boyfriends here he lost at the party. And he's been going to all the funerals and the memorials.
His father came with a message.
Don't forget. Don't forget anything, because we tend to forget. Everyone has a short memory, and after a month or 2 months or a year, you'll come back here, you'll see there'll be red puppies here, and you'll forget. Don't forget, that's all. Like we're not allowed to forget the Holocaust. We're not allowed to forget what happened here.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, from the site of the Nova Music Festival.
Still ahead, see how CBN partners are providing relief to war victims in Israel. The Shalva Community Center in Jerusalem has opened its doors to those affected by the ongoing war with Hamas. CBN Israel is partnering with Shalva to provide support and resources for those forced to evacuate because of rocket fire and the encroachment of war into their communities. Thanks to this partnership, families are finding a safe harbor.
We're here outside the Shalva National Center. On a typical day, we would have 1,000 children coming here from birth all the way through adulthood. But since the breakout of war on October the 7th, we've opened our doors as the Shalva National Crisis Response Center. And particularly with the help of CBN, we've been able to run a whole new emergency campaign. We already have hundreds of people who are staying here and that we're servicing. Some are sleeping here, some are staying in neighboring facilities. But this is all here ready in case we have to bring up to 1,000 more evacuees. We always think we're at capacity and then new programs come along and somehow we find a way to make it work.
I'm the principal of the Eden boarding school. The whole kibbutz has become a military zone, so we had to find an emergency solution. And we were offered to come to Shalva. It's been really, really comforting and hospitable to come here.
We were attacked on October 7th. And fortunately enough, we had Shalva right next door as our next door neighbors. Immediately opened their hearts, opened their doors, and let us in. Whatever we need, they're here for us as a community that's been displaced and evacuated. We know that our basic needs are met.
I think that Shalva's role has been a game changer for these families. A whole network was set up. Over 100 children are coming to Shalva, enjoying the amazing resources here.
We're there to do everything we can to facilitate their being here. And it was very traumatic for them, but it's amazing to see at this point how they have come back to life.
Many of our families and our staff here at Shalva actually are dealing with situations where at least one family member who's actually serving on the front lines, we're not fighting this war on our own, has been really remarkable. And I know that the contribution from CBN and all of your supporters has made a significant difference.
We're working very hard with our friends to help fund this, and the cost is astronomical. CBN has become significant partners in Shalva, and now at time of war, they've upped the ante and continue to help us in most meaningful and significant ways. For donors of CBN, I can only say that every dollar you want to put towards a humanitarian cause that is not just touching lives, but impacting and changing lives, this is one of those places.
Well, that's all for this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. Thanks for joining us. Remember, you can follow us on social media, and you can access CBN content through our CBN News and other CBN apps. And please remember to pray for the safety of IDF soldiers, all those caught in harm's way, and for the safe return of the remaining hostages. I'm Julie Stahl. We'll see you next time on Jerusalem Dateline.